attack, fast fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and packs. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet out. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kira's show here. Now, whenever we last left off with this series, we went over the tale of King Arthur. Or, in our case, is Zuku's tale. Now, with that being said, after Midoriya had laid dormant for a very long period of time, he was awakened. He watched his kingdom, them, take over this foreign land. He watched that land then rise to power and fall, all from outside the kingdom. Now, afterwards, he sort of just laid dormant. He couldn't do anything. He could sleep in slumber, so he did that. Eventually, one day, he fell into a slumber so deep, he did not awaken. He thought that would be the last time he sees the world. However, that was just it. He was awoken when these strange people arrived. Then there they were. They were speaking in somewhat of a tongue that sounded familiar. They were speaking to a man who was at least somewhat in tone with the dialect he was familiar with. Now, after a lot of things happened around the area, Midoriya was able to eventually start picking up this language. But, before he completely mastered it, this is whenever Melissa came along. And, surprise, surprise, she was the warrior who was able to pull the sword from the stone. Now, with that being said, I don't believe I gave a proper age for Melissa in this timeline. I want to say that she is around the age of 8 years old to 9. I feel like that would be a good age to start at, because it does at least leave room for her father to worry about her being off on her own, while at the same time making sure that she's not too reckless at the same time. Now, with that being said, Melissa's shield. After pulling the sword from the stone, she was actually intrigued by it. This sword, whatever it is, it feels somewhat light. That's strange. Her dad said that this thing was supposed to be heavy, especially since that no one could pull it from the stone. This thing's amazing. Now, Melissa begins to at least try and mess around with it, and swing around. While she's swinging the sword around, she does accidentally let go of it, and send it flying. As soon as it does, it smashes directly back down onto the ground, and she does go over to pick it up. Once she does, she sees a shine in the jewel, or at least in the handle, of someone's reflection behind her, turning around and not seeing anyone. Who was that? That was weird. Okay. Her going to pick it up again, and look at it, thinking for a second that she should probably bring it to her father, and let him at least test it out, or even, well, look at it. But this thing is so cool looking, she says as she raises the blade high to the sky, thinking for 1 second. The blade looks old, but if she's right, there should be rust on it. There's no rust. Strange. Now, that is whenever David, he came running out, and saw his daughter holding this giant sword directly high above her head. Now, as he does come running over, he's surprised to see that, asking Melissa to carefully put down the sword. Huh? Oh, sorry, Dad. But it's just, I wanted to see it. But how were you able to... Hmm? What are you talking about? The sword. It was stuck right over there. How'd you pull it from the stone? Hmm? Pull it? I just pulled. David walking over to the area and running his hand on the stone, looking. Wait, where's the hole? That's strange. It was right here. Something's wrong with that sword. That doesn't make any sense. Is it... Okay, think about this logically, David. Either that's some sort of... Well, there's gotta be some explanation for this. Think about it. Is it possible that the rock is able to fill out again, or... No, there was a strange glow that doesn't explain it. Now, as David does ponder that, he asks his daughter to hand over the sword. I bit my tongue. Hand over the sword. And to simply just let him deal with that. Melissa going to hand it over to her father. As soon as she does basically have it standing up in front of her, and the tip of the blade is at the ground, she lets go of it. And her dad, as soon as he does grab it, the thing feels like it weighs a ton. It actually falling over and him trying to pick it up. He's pulling it by the handle, and confused for a second. How was she able to pick this thing up? Now, that is whenever many other people, they do come over to see what is going on. They were all going to go look for Melissa. However, after one guy talked about the fact that she was going to go see the sword, they're all over here. And you do have everyone. All these people, they see David struggling to pick up the sword, but it's out of the stone. And they all do try and take turns to try and pick up the sword off of the ground or out of each other's struggling hands. No one is really successful. The blade doesn't want to raise to the air. It feels like as soon as they try and move it, it's just magnetized to the ground. Even the guy with the strength quirk, he tried. He tried to pull that thing out, and he should have been able to lift it. It didn't make sense. The sword didn't want to do anything. And then there was Melissa. Whenever she walked over and picked it up, light as a feather. So what was going on with that? Now, this is whenever David does at least instruct her to go put that thing in the car, and they can take it for the research. Sure, Dad. Her just taking the sword. She does go to try and run off and drag it behind her, but David basically yells at her to not run with that thing. It is not a toy. And she does at least walk. While she is doing that, she is cutting into the ground. And at least thinking. As he does try and lift it up and swing it, her arm, directly from behind her, forwards, and raise it up to look at the blade. As soon as she does that again, there is that reflection. Her, and then a strange man behind her. Turning around. Who is there? I see. What? Who said that? I have a weapon. I know. You're wielding my weapon. Hey, this was stuck in the stone. I didn't steal it. It was just there. No, I am your weapon. Now, she's confused, looking back at the blade, and watching as that reflection appears again. Her confused. What? Who are you? What are you doing in there? Her turning around. Where'd you go? Her turning back around again and seeing the reflection. Doing that a couple times. Will you stop that? What? How is this possible? Is this your quirk? What is a quirk? It's a superpower. What is a superpower? Wait, um, how long have you been in there? I am unsure, uncertain. Okay, well, who are you? Me. I I am King Arthur. Really? You're serious, right? Why, yes, I am. Why do you ask? Because King Arthur didn't look like you. I'm sorry? Yeah, I've heard the stories. I've read the, well, books. King Arthur was, well, a king. After his father died, he ruled for a long time. Eventually, one day during battle, he threw down his sword and proclaimed never to fight again. I'm sorry, child, do you have the right story? That is not what happened. What? What are you talking about? That's what's in the history books. At least, well, not really history. In fact, you were kind of, hmm, what was it? Hmm, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble trying to think about this. Well, take your time. This is my first conversation about ever since I was put in here. You were put in there? Why? Because I killed a king. Hmm? What are you talking about? Well, whenever I was a very young man, and I still had my body, there was that fateful day. I led my warriors into battle. I saved my kingdom, killed my enemies, made sure they were all safe. I argued with my father, him saying that I was too valuable to lose, and that I should not be fighting. However, I would fight for my people. I would fight more and more, and this annoyed him. Eventually, he was killed by an assassin, and then I was crowned the king. Afterwards, I believe I was put in here whenever, well, I believe it's called magic. Do, do you know what magic is, child? Huh? Magic? Everyone knows what magic is. Ah, good. I thought I would have to explain that. I think that we should at least try and understand each other. You can explain to me what some of these strange words you say are, and what they mean. Meanwhile, I can tell you the real story. Now, with that being said, Melissa does hear her father call to her, telling her to come back, and she does set the sword down. And Midoriya, or King Arthur, he just thinks about it. The way this world sounds, it sounds different. He is remembered, but clearly differently. So, what stories have they told of him? what stories were written down, passed down. He wants to know. They all do sound sort of fascinating whenever he does think about it. Now, with that being said, after today, they do actually begin to leave, packing up their things and going back home. David wanted to look around the dig site a bit more, but they kind of already discovered everything they could. They were hoping that they could just pull the entire rock out of, well, the ground, and take the entire sword, since it wouldn't budge. And they did have to actually cancel the thing they were going to use that was coming and on the way. Now, with that being said, they do leave, and after a long exchange of getting the sword to where it needs to go, they arrive back at, I would say Island, but I don't believe that they do live there. It's an amusement park, but even then, I want to say they would probably be somewhere else. They would probably stay at the amusement park since they would have rooms there. But for the sake of it, let's say they actually do have a home somewhere in Japan, since they are quite a wealthy family. Now, they head back to Japan and stay there for a while. Melissa beginning to explain certain things. Explain to Mr. Arthur, or Izuku, as to how the world is, and showing him one of the greatest marvels of the century, television. I really hope that someone understands that joke. Anyways, now, with that being said, after a few weeks, Melissa does actually begin to at least finally understand some of the things she has learned. And so has Midoriya. Apparently, a quirk is well, from what this young one has explained to him, it sort of works like magic. However, everyone has their own unique form of it. So, it's quite interesting. Everyone has their own unique power, and then there is just the way that this world may work. Apparently, a flying machine called a plane is a thing. It's like a giant bird in the sky. And boats still exist, but they now run off of giant engines. This world is quite strange. Now, with that being said, Melissa does actually come home from school one day. And she's actually somewhat crying and trying to wipe away her tears. This being where Mr. Arthur, or Izuku, does try and ask her a question. Exactly why is she crying? And she does try and explain it. Whenever she tried to talk to everyone at school today, and basically state that she had a magic friend, no one believed her. And she tried to explain it, but every other kid just made fun of her. And said that the quirkless girl, she was making up imaginary friends. Especially friends that are a sword. Now, King Arthur, or Izuku, just asked her a question. Why does that matter? Huh? Why does it matter? Why does it matter what they think? You are your own person. If you really wanted to impress them, do something else. Be a person of action. Not just someone who sits on the sidelines. But how do I do that? Well, you are the only one able to lift me up and carry me. So, I believe that I can help solve your problem. Now, about that story you've told me. Which one? I think it was the one with the trolls and the elves. Something about, what was it? Something about the sword and its power. Oh, I think that was the one with the dragon. Ha, okay. Anyways, every time you pick up the sword, I can feel its magic. It's trying to channel, and it's working. Huh? What are you talking about? Just lift up the sword, and let me be your guide. Now, with that, Melissa does actually pick up the sword, and Midoriya tells her to close her eyes. As soon as she does, Midoriya begins to at least let this spirit, or at least the energy of the sword, flow into Melissa's hands. As soon as it does, she actually does somewhat feel her grip tighten up. And the sword, it feels a little bit lighter, more than usual. And then she opens her eyes. That being where a blue glow can be spotted. And she just asks exactly what was that. That feels different. Young one, whenever I first picked up this sword, I discovered something. The power of it. The sword was given to me because of its own magical properties. So, wait, you're saying that the sword is magical? Yes. And then there was me. I've spent a long time, not only inside this sword, but learning its ways. So, I believe that I can be a good help to you. Simply let me be your hand, be your guide. And Melissa actually does agree. Throughout the day, she listens to what Midoriya says. And she can somewhat feel Midoriya influence her actions when she's moving. If she doesn't feel like the sword should be a certain way, it feels like it angles differently. Or it at least moves somewhat freely in her hand. Now, after that does happen, the next day at school, Melissa, she actually does somewhat arrive. And everyone is confused to see that Melissa, not only does she have her backpack, but there is something, well, underneath it. And it's rolled up a lot, really. Now, Melissa, she does one thing. Whenever they are all in class, she just completely unrolls it. And there is the sword. Its handle. Melissa just grabbing the sword and pulling it out of the sheath. As soon as that has happened, she does present it. Ta-da! Now, everyone, they're kind of surprised. Melissa has a sword. However, not really a lot of them are intimidated. She's quirkless. That guy over there has a hardening quirk. That guy has electricity. That guy's got fire. And then there's that guy over there, who can manipulate metal. Now, a lot of them are actually somewhat watching, as Melissa goes on stating that she's the only one who can lift this sword, and if anyone thinks they can, to simply just try it. As she just sets it down on the ground. Now, everyone, they call Melissa's bluff, and they all do try and pick up the sword. No effect. Even the kid with the magnetism quirk couldn't even lift it. And he was using a quirk. Her picking it up with ease. and telling them all that they are simply not able to do what she can, and that this here is the friend she was talking about. Now, with that being said, at recess, Melissa is actually talking with Midoriya, or to King Arthur. I'm just going to start referring to him as Midoriya. Anyways, now, as she is talking with him, she is sitting down, and just thinking. This is quite, strange. So exactly, what do you think will happen? Well, as you basically do cut to her perspective. She's looking at the sword as there is Midoriya's upper face, it revealing his eyes and at least his hair, saying that he believes that she should be able to get a handle on it. They all could not do what she could. Now they'll at least have some reason to leave her alone. Or they might just start picking on you more. Alright. Now, as that happens, Midoriya does tell her to look out. And Melissa, she does actually somewhat realize it. This being where she does grab the sword and spin around. As soon as she does spin around, she just puts it to the side and blocks a rock that was thrown at her. As soon as she does that, she immediately just does move it down again and block 2 to 3 more. Now, this does actually surprise some of the kids. A lot of them threw rocks at Melissa. They thought that it would either really well annoy her and make her think that she's not special, or it would just be funny. They didn't expect her to actually do that. And Melissa is standing there, her putting herself in a stance and telling them is that it, before actually just folding the sword outwards and somewhat throwing it down, putting herself into somewhat of a stance. The other kids quickly running off to go to try and find a teacher. Now, Melissa actually does somewhat snap back into reality. Huh? What was that? Ah, I see. That is the warrior spirit. Powerful. And quite eager, if I could say. What does that mean? Ah, I believe I can explain it to you. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed this What If. And if you guys are wondering when part 2 of The Void is coming out, it will probably be a minute. I'm trying to catch up on all things Marvel. I was going to actually watch a lot of that stuff tomorrow, but I'm being called into work. Which unfortunately also means that this is going to be the only What If out tonight. Anyway guys, I do hope you enjoyed.